Do you find managing multiple plugins a bit difficult? Well, Kestra 0.22 makes that much easier by using version plugins. Starting now, you'll be able to install your plugins directly from the UI, and you'll be able to install multiple versions of the same plugin. This is very useful if you've got old workflows that rely on an older version of a plugin, but you want to be able to slowly migrate your workflows to a newer version without having to make all of them run on the new version straight away. This means you can test that it works and migrate them over one at a time without having to break anything in production. To be able to access your version plugins, head over to Administration and then head over to Instance. Now in here, you'll have a new option here called Version Plugins, and here's where you'll be able to manage all your plugins. So if I press Install now, I get an option for all of the plugins that are available for Kestra, as well as custom plugins which we can access here. Now for the official plugins, I'm using AWS in a particular workflow that I've got, so I'm going to click the AWS plugin, press next, and then it will ask me what version of the plugin I would like to use. Now I'm going to install 0.18 here because I want to go and use an older version alongside a newer one. Now, when I press install, it will take a few minutes potentially. You'll have it ready to go here so that you can use AWS at that older version. I can also see that the AWS one has a newer version available. So if I press the upgrade button, I can see that it's going to suggest I install the most up-to-date version. So when I've done that, we'll see that it's going to install that and we'll have that available too. And now we've got two versions of the plugin installed. Now that we have multiple versions of that AWS plugin installed, we can use the new version property inside of our workflow to specify which version of the plugin we want it to use. So by default here, I've got it running using the latest plugin, which was installed by default, but we can also change that, and we can change that to be 0.18.0. So here we can see that it's worked, and now it's going to run using an older version of the plugin. So this is especially useful if you're using something that's deprecated or something older, where you need to use an older plugin, but you want to make sure that new workflows can use newer versions of the plugin, which may have new additional features. There's also some additional properties that we can add to our Kestra configuration to help us manage multiple versions of plugins. For example, we can specify what we want the default version to use. So for example, we can say use the latest version of the plugin. We could use current to say use the currently installed version of the plugin. You can specify oldest if you want it to use the earliest version of a plugin. None if you have no preference and you'd rather it to be specified inside of the task itself using that version property. Or you can specify a particular version like we used 0.18.0. Your plugins are installed on your internal storage, so if you're using a remote internal storage provider like S3, it's important to set that to true. You can also specify where these plugins will be synchronized and managed as well if you want to specify a different path. Because the plugin could be dealing with multiple versions of a plugin, it will be auto-reloading to check if there's new versions of a plugin, plugins have been uninstalled, and so on. And so you can say it should auto-reload as well as how frequently it should auto-reload. In this case, it's set to look every 60 seconds. And all of this can be configured to your Kestra configuration by just adding plugins and then management underneath the Kestra tag. Hopefully you found that useful and you're now going to be able to install multiple versions of plugins to be able to suit your workflows. Let us know in the comments below how you're using this and if there's anything you'd like to see in the future.